Okay, so in this podcast, I'm going to give you 10 tips, strategies, tactics that I use with my athletes in Rugby Muscle to save them time. And this isn't just for the people who have limited time to spend in the gym. It is absolutely for those people because that is a lot of you that are watching and listening to this podcast. You have a very limited amount of time, particularly in season, but you have to arrange your training around your work, around your family. The more efficient that we can be with our time, the better. But also, the more efficient that we can be with our time means the more work that we can get through, which means the more quality work, more adaptations. Good. So that's what we're going to get into in today's podcast. What is going on, everyone? My name is TJ. Welcome back to another Rugby Muscle Podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast at any point, if you enjoy any of these tips, let me know by hitting the thumbs up, giving us a 5-star rating on Spotify, or even better, if you're on YouTube, say hi in the comments below. Let me know which one of these tips, techniques, tactics is your favorite, because each person is going to have a different one. So let's get into it. Number one, time chunks. So this is essentially blocking out the different components of your routine into time blocks so that then you have a little bit of urgency. We could also just do this by having a running clock run throughout your entire workout. But I think for that, sometimes people forget what work they've got to do in the future. There's a little bit less urgency. So using time chunks really gives you a little bit of urgency that a lot of you will need when it comes to getting through your work nice and quickly. Say, for example, we've got a block of back squats paired with box jumps paired with broad jumps. I'm going to set out that you're going to do 3 sets of 5 once you've worked up to that working weight. And I'm going to say that you're going to take no more than 15 minutes to get through this work. This then allows you to have some level of urgency. If that 15 minutes or 10 minutes block wasn't established, it's very easy just to spend your time sort of swiping through your phone, getting distracted by other people in the gym. Maybe even, it's mostly a phone thing. Let's be honest. Most of you spend way too much time on the phone. If that's not you, great, really good. But it's just a level of urgency that we need. We've been told so many times that for strength work or for any work, people get way too concerned with rest periods. Whenever you feel like you're ready to go again, you should probably just go again. The faster you can do that, the more work that you can get through, or the faster you can finish your training session. So that would be tip number 1. Tip number 2, no social media during your training session or emails, because I've had this rule for myself and then I find myself checking my emails. No communication. Like, stay locked in. You'll be surprised at how quickly you can recover and how much work you can get through when you're not stopping to check your phone, when you're not spending 3 to 5 minutes just scrolling and you're like, oh crap, I've not done my set. That time passes so much faster when you are wasting time on your phone. You'll definitely notice the difference that makes. And of course, like, giving yourself that level of urgency doesn't necessarily mean that you can be ready and your muscles are ready for the very next set within 30 seconds, but it does mean that you can get through a lot more work a lot faster, especially if you use tip number 3, and that is group sets. So we could use this as antagonist supersets, we could use this as giant sets, we could use this as complex training, we could use this as compound training, we could use this as escalating density training, all of which is to say that we don't really utilize straight sets. We don't do 1 set of bench and then wait for 3 minutes doing nothing and then go again. We might do 1 set of bench and then some sort of plyometric throw or plyometric push-up. We might do 1 set of bench and then some rows or some pull-ups. I used to use bench press with lat pull-downs. I found that being logistically a little bit more awkward to not be as useful, but you could use this for so many different situations, because of course your muscles might not be prepared for the very next set within 30 seconds to a minute, but you can still do something else, right? So instead of waiting to be ready for the next set, utilize that time to do another exercise not involving those muscles. And again, this will rely on you having some decent amount of work capacity, which we'll get onto. But rather than just twiddle your thumbs, scroll through your phone, actually we're not scrolling for our phone now because we use tip 2, so rather than just twiddle your thumbs and wait around to be ready for the next set, you're doing something else which doesn't fatigue the muscles at hand. So like I said, you could do jumps, plyometric training, but mostly it's just about utilizing different muscle groups so that your working muscle groups still get that rest and you're able to then get through more work in the same amount of time. Once you get through more work in the same amount of time, it means that you're spending less time in the gym to get through the same amount of work. Number 4, 1 to 2 sets instead of 3, or 3 sets instead of 5. I hope I can still build to 10 if I use this as just one tip. More often than not, when you will see a bodybuilding program, you'll see lots of 3 to 4 sets of different work. And when you see powerlifting programs, more often than not, you'll see 5 sets of a heavy exercise. This is mostly done just to sort of cover the bases, just to make sure that you get the maximum amount of stimulus, or at least a really good stimulus. You can actually make up for those extra sets by putting forth a really good effort within the limited sets that you do. You don't need to do that many sets. Of course, if you're in a strength sport like bodybuilding, like powerlifting, where you don't need to recover for field work or do other stuff, getting in those extra sets, it might be worth that trade-off. But for you as a rugby player, particularly if you're looking to save time, you're better off, instead of doing 3 sets, just doing 1 to 2 real hard sets, making sure that you're covering your bases rather than with volume but with intensity. Same thing for, instead of just doing 5 sets, most of the time I just don't think 5 sets are that necessary. Again, particularly for rugby players, you can get 95+% of the stimulus from those first 3 sets. You got to picture that every single set after your first set is less and less effective, right? That's your biggest return on investment. Your second set, second biggest return. Every single set that you subsequently do is going to give you less and less and less. That's why we don't do 20 sets, right? If we could do 20 sets and get the same return on our investment that we did for our first 2, we would do that and we would get massive. But that's not the case. So 1 to 2 sets instead of 3 to 5. Speaking of which, next we've got 1 times 20. This is taken from Dr. Michael Yesis, who has put together what is a fantastic program, mostly aimed at youth athletes to get them through lots of different exercises and lots of different work. We've taken that and we've utilized it mostly for accessory work, where instead of doing 3 to 4 sets of 10 to 12 of different work, we just go through 1 times 20. That gets us a decent amount of volume. That gets us a lot of technical practice. We're getting 20 reps. And if the intent is there, it will still also give us some level of power benefit, some level of strength benefit. And of course, the volume and the amount of work that you get through and the intensity, that is going to lead you towards getting a good hypertrophy stimulus as well. And it's not necessarily even limited to our isolation work. This can also be done with jumps, it can be done with lots of different movements. The original idea of 1 times 20 was that you could get through 20 to 25 different exercises within a session. We don't necessarily do that, but we take the great stimulus that we can get from one hard set of around 20 reps, and we utilize that for a good chunk of our accessory work. The next tip is the other method that we use for a good chunk of our accessory work, and that is myo reps. This is where we utilize short rest periods between sets to add extra volume in without the need to have to do a bunch of reps to get to those stimulative, challenging reps that we usually only get to at the end of a set. So the best way to look at this is by using an example. What we're going to do is use bicep curls for the example, and we do 1 set of 15. We rest then for 10 to 20 seconds. We crank out another myo rep set, which will give us maybe 7 to 8 reps. And we rest 10 to 20 more seconds, following up with a second myo rep set, which gives us 5 extra reps. We've got through effectively 3 sets of effective reps, 3 sets of challenging sets without needing to spend a long time to rest to go again, without needing to do the extra volume of those first few reps to get to those sets close to failure. That gets us a lot of quality work in minimal time. This is, again, mostly done with our accessory work. There's a reason that they're called accessories. It's because they're not the most important things within your training program. If we can save time on doing them, we utilize 1 times 20 or the MyRep system. Next, if we're getting through some field work, we are going to be, as best we can, doing that around our rugby training. Since we're already going to be there for rugby, it already makes the most sense to just utilize 15 to 30 minutes of time before or after your rugby session. Ideally before, but sometimes logistically that's just not possible. If it's before, we can get through our speed and agility work. If it's after, we can also get through condition. You can also do condition before. No matter what, the idea is that this doesn't take away from the rugby that you're about to do or have just done, and you don't then have to drive to the field, to the rugby pitch, get your boots on, do all of that stuff another day outside of your rugby. You're already doing this stuff to do your rugby sessions. We might as well take 15, sometimes even as little as 10 minutes before our session and get a real good quality amount of stimulus, get massive progress, and then we can simply move into our rugby session and be prepared for our session, having got some quality conditioning work or speed work already done. Another thing we'll also do to save time with the conditioning is program/encourage zone 2 work to be done as runs. This means that you can just go right out the door, put your trainers on, then go out the door, and there's no need to drive to the gym. There's no need to drive back from the gym, do the shower, do all of that stuff. It's just a lot simpler, a lot easier to wake up, put your trainers on, go out for your zone 2 work. We found that works really well. Or get in from work, put your trainers on, go out and do your zone 2 work. That really makes a big difference rather than have to worry about doing some sort of specific intervals on the spin bike or something and having to go to the gym and mess around with all of that. We do gym-based condition work. That is part of it, but it's deliberately programmed on the shorter gym session days, right? So we're not just tacking it on at the end. We're not just adding it as a finisher, resulting in your session being an hour and 40 minutes. We do it deliberately on the days where we don't need to get through much work as far as the weights go. And maybe even as a priority, it's just we're going to the gym to do our condition work, and whilst we're there, we'll do it a little bit of an extra weights. Maybe that counts as another tip. If it doesn't, then the next tip is going to be getting really aerobically fit. We place a big focus on getting our athletes, and that is everyone that we work with. Even if you don't play rugby, even if you're 50 years old, we absolutely view you as an athlete, and we get our athletes into really good aerobic shape so that they can get through the amount of work and the work that we have already discussed in the previous tips. I might have given you some of those tips and you just thought, oh, when am I going to rest? That sounds really hard. Well, like if you can only lift heavy after 5+ minutes of rest, you're not going to be much use on the rugby pitch. And the strength that you build resting for that long is probably also not going to be that much use. The reality is, if you can recover, you should be doing some more work. And if you can't recover, then you should be working on your ability to recover. And that is mostly given to you by really working on your aerobic system. Getting a strong, robust aerobic system is going to allow you to recover from all of those hard efforts faster and faster, and allow you to get through so much more work, feel better, feel fresh, get the benefits. And then you can work harder through those extra pieces of work as well, right? So you're getting more and more benefits by being aerobically fit. And then of course, on top of that, almost like a bonus, but probably the most important thing, when you're really aerobically fit, you can play your best rugby on the pitch with the most clear head. You can put your hand up over and over and over again to take the carries. You can keep your mind clear. You don't have to worry about being so tired. You can just focus on the next play, focus on your actions, focus on getting better. That is why we place such a huge emphasis on working the aerobic system, but it also gives us the ability to get through so much more work and save ourselves time. And then finally, the last thing that we do is we program for the year. With rugby, there's so many different things that you can train for, and in so many different ways to train for them. One simple scroll through social media is going to show you all of those different things and more, and can absolutely leave you with FOMO, or it could either leave you with FOMO or you just add more and more and more into your training program. Programming for the year allows us to take sort of a step back and emphasize different elements at different times of the year. More importantly, this allows us to de-emphasize basically everything that is not currently in the program right now. Either knowing that they're not going to be done, or knowing that they're going to be done and focused on at a later time and develop further. And also knowing that we're not regressing at the moment by not adding this new thing into our program. We're doing fine. right? This shifts the mindset from trying to do as much as possible within any given training week to just executing the plan as best possible. Quite often I'll get messages from people within the team or sometimes even within one-on-one coaching that say, this time of the day has opened up for me. What more can I do? And I always say nothing. Like, go do something else that's not to do with your strength and conditioning. We're so caught up in this trap of trying to do more and more and more and more. Rather, what we want to do is execute on the plan that is laid out as best as possible, because that is going to guarantee that we get really good progress. And if we can continue to execute on the plan as best possible, make that progress month on month on month, to stack that up, to continue to make progress through the entire year. And when it does happen, that's how we get such amazing results with the athletes that we work with Rugby Muscle. And if you're interested in being one of those athletes, click the links in the description below. If you're not, that's also cool. Just say hi in the comments below. Give this video a thumbs up if you found it useful. If you haven't done so already, hit subscribe. It helps you get this show to make sure that you are using your time as efficiently as possible, giving you the best amateur rugby strength and conditioning information possible. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.